Yeah. That's not yeah. It's that on there.
Ready? Okay, everybody. We're going to start the last of the main sessions today. This is all. Now, this is again. We've done ideas. We've looked at various parts. We've looked at funding. We've looked at the legal side of things. Now we're going to move more towards the internal part of the company itself and what sorts of things you need to consider putting in place. So whether it's the operational side or the internal finance side. We're also going to run this session slightly differently as well. We're not sort of doing the usual 20 minutes talk, 20 minutes questions and 20 minutes networking. We've got a 3/4 of an hour one that incorporates talks and questions. Then we're moving to local to global for half an hour as the Americans come along. So what we're going to do is we've got this hybrid session. So Winifred here is going to be doing the in-room part, but we've got Michal online, and he's going to start off the session. So I guess you two are doing a double act.
Yes.
So I'd like to introduce Michal. You're going to start this on the finance planning part.
Yes, Simon. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
That's perfect. Wonderful to be here. Good evening. Hi. I would like to start on the finance planning, on the motivation about or behind the finance planning and maybe some of its basic elements. Well, okay, just two sentences to me. My name is Michal Dallos. I'm located in one of the financial centers of Europe in Frankfurt, in Germany. So I'm very happy to be here and to be part of the festival. I am not very surprisingly working in the field of finance. I'm advising in the fields of corporate finance and M&A, and here and there I'm supporting also young companies, startups with business model development or with questions around money, fundraising, financial planning, etc. Well, let's start. What is a finance plan? I mean, the talk should be about a finance plan. You will see on the top of here a nice big definition. Finance plan is a projection of future income and future costs, etc., etc. Well, this sounds very possibly professional, but possibly also not very helpful and not very practical. So allow me to rephrase this definition or the question. Why should we actually bother about the financial planning? Why should we, if we have an exciting idea of starting a new business, a cool product we are engaging, why should we go down this troublesome and potentially boring way and dealing with financial planning? So let's say we start to investigate this topic in a way that I present you 5 answers which a finance plan should provide, and then of course I hope this motivates everyone to to get more into the topic and to get some more insights and some more motivation to deal with this topic. So the first question a finance plan should answer is the expected revenue. Well, what does it mean, revenue? How to calculate it? It's kind of easy. It's the unit price of a product or a service or a good we deliver, and times the price we were able to sell it. Well, this simply looking formula may at the end not be that simple, because we of course need to, when we do a plan, we project in the future, we actually don't know how much we sell. So we first need to think of how to get an approximation of the number of products we could sell. Well, we can either derive it from the or we typically would derive it from the number of potential customers we can reach, but we have to be careful of not overdoing it, because we also need to be able to deliver, to produce, and to develop these products. It doesn't make sense to make a big future expectation to project them while not having a product, or not being able, in particular with digital products, not being able to deliver this product to the customer. The next challenge is, of course, with the second part of the equation. Well, what price should we ask? This pricing strategy is a topic for itself. We didn't got that much time, so I'm just going to give a brief idea that our pricing strategy should be based on our value proposition. I'm sure you heard this term today, and hence it should be based on what a customer is willing to pay. It should not be based primarily on how much it costs to produce a product, and it should also not be based solemnly on the competitor conversion, because this means that we don't have any USP comparing to the competitors. So I can't go deeper in this topic, but if you check these three keywords, it's quite an interesting and intriguing strategy on how to get the right price for the product. The question number two, well, we got the sales side, but now it's of course interesting to get the cost side of a product. How much does all of this cost? So we have two categories of costs. Typically, we introduce two categories of costs, the so-called capital expenditures and operating expenditures. The capital expenditures, the CapEx, are normally seen as sort of one-time payment, as sort of investment. So we need to buy some machinery, production side equipment, and we need to, of course, found a company. So for company formation costs, we possibly may need to get some R&D, some development done. This is strictly spoken not CapEx in terms of bookkeeping, but here, economically speaking, we could assign it to this capital expenditures. We have the other costs, the costs involved in product and running the business. They always kind of scale with a little bit with the number of products. So we have the product specific costs, the delivery costs, etc. But of course, administration, rental, marketing, etc. will be also a bit dependent on the amount and size of our product universe. And of course, other costs, consultancy, insurance, are also not to be avoided. Here a small tip, it's quite difficult. It doesn't make, to estimate costs, it doesn't make much difference if the person is experienced or a kind of beginning, aspiring entrepreneur, because if one starts something new, that it means it's new and there is nothing really available on the market on a blueprint. So I just can give the advice that if no industry informations are available, then the best guess, the best assumption is much more valuable than leaving this out, because while pursuing the way of developing a company, all these assumptions will become more and more clear and more precise, and there will be simply a starting value. And the starting value is, of course, much better than a zero, because zero would mean we ignore costs, and that's quite dangerous. Why? Because the question number 3 is related to the profitability of the company. So for this, we use typically a so-called profit and loss statements. Some of you who studied some economics will be definitely familiar with this concept. So in order to answer the question of the profitability, we simply deduce different cost groups from the sales, from the revenue, and we can hence determine the different level of profitability. So for example, the gross profit tells us how much money is left from the sales after the direct costs of goods. Of course, here we also need to think deeper about the meaning and the helpfulness of an PLA statement. It shows us, it gives us the basic messages if the sales are covering the costs of the company. So if all the numbers going down the line are negative, then obviously our company is not profitable at all, and we should probably rethink the strategy, the business model. With investors also, the question is how long it takes to become profitable, how long it takes to become to achieve the so-called break-even point. So we probably need to typically at the beginning increase the number of sales or increase the profitability overall, and then we reach the break-even point where the revenue is covering at least the costs of the company. This is a hot discussion with all possible investors or anyone giving you money. The question number 4 is not very surprising and still a little bit surprising. Well, the point is that being profitable doesn't necessarily mean having money in the bank account, and having money in the bank account doesn't necessarily mean you are profitable. These two things are not, well, they are linked together, but they are not identical. That's why a 4th question is needed to be answered: how much money I need and when. So in this way, we use a so-called cash flow statement to determine this. In the cash flow statement, we simply group the payments, the income and ingoing and outgoing payments from the operations. We connect them with payments from investment activities and from financing activities. And at the end, we see how much money is, we can simply calculate also how much money is in our account and why. The peak learnings here are mainly very often the peak capital requirement. So there could be possibly in every business model, there is a certain peak where everything comes together. I need to invest, I need to hire, I need to rent, I need to do many things. Things are peaking up. And then, of course, it shows us the bottlenecks of our business model. So if we, for example, need to do large pre-orderings, large shipments from Far East or from other countries, or even from local sources, but if we need to order goods in bulks, then we unfortunately will most probably need to prepay them, or at least to do some down payment. And this can lead to a bottleneck on the bank account. And of course, investors will be very interested in this question because they will want to know how much money you need and what is your so-called burn rate. The question how much money you need and what are you going to use it for is the standard question of every investor, and entrepreneurs should at least be prepared to give an answer on this. Like, I don't know, maybe it's $1 million. It's not really a good answer. It's not really helpful. One can calculate it and one can competently provide a proper answer. The last question, what I think a financial plan could or should answer is all the underlying assumptions simply of the planning, like what size of a client universe I'm expecting, what is my traction, growth rate, scalability, so how much the curves are going up and why. Then, of course, the mentioned topics of cost structure, pricing strategy, of one-time investment, and in this way also the USP, which is kind of giving all of it a reason why this financial plan should actually work. So here, these informations can be partly derived from the business model, but also coming very much, if it goes for the quantitative assumptions, it comes from the finance plan actually. So what can we use it for? What it typically is going to be used for is for any discussion with any investors or simply people providing you money. It can be banks, it can be official institutions, and they will need to understand how did you come up with the numbers in the financial plan, how much money you need. I already addressed this topic. And well, at some point, if it's an investor, he also wants to know how much do I get for it in terms of shares. The financial plan also allows us to calculate, to design scenarios. So the typical scenarios are worst case, best case, base case, but I can also very easily in an Excel table design specific scenarios which would introduce some challenges or some opportunities, just to check them, just to make them available and to think them through and see the effect on the overall company. So concluding slowly, so the question is, what was this all good for, the financial planning? Well, we came, I'm sure you're familiar with business model canvas or any similar canvas type of business model analysis. This provides a qualitative insight. Yeah, I can like get the structure, what's the USP, how much it costs, etc. This is a kind of, yeah, qualitative insight how my business is running. The same, just translated into numbers, is the financial plan. It gives us the quantitative insight, how much, when, and why. The next level I already mentioned, the next advantage is the finance plan, the KPI provides you free business model testing. You don't, of course, you don't need to spend any money for marketing and sales to test your business model in Excel. You don't even need to think how to make a customer evaluation. You can, in the first place, make your assumption and see how these assumptions are working. If they are not working, then it makes definitely no sense to undergo next steps. You can also use the financial plan for ex post controlling. So you have some assumptions, and then let's say month by month, and then the months are passing by, so you can change the plan numbers for the actual numbers and compare them and see what happened, how good my assumptions were, and of course adapt the future planning on what was learned here. Any investors will be very excited seeing an entrepreneur doing some basic level of controlling and not just running in blindfold. And of course, be prepared that investors will want to see anything as something like a finance plan, and they will ask certainly questions and assumptions. It was too fast to jumping, so I would like to conclude. Well, I like to translate informations into numbers. Obviously, I work with numbers, yeah. So I really like this statement that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So I hope this is a kind of a motivation why to get involved with financial planning. Of course, not everyone necessarily needs to become the ultimate expert of financial planning. You could use some internal or external help of setting up and doing this financial planning, but one should definitely be able to critically read and understand a financial plan or a controlling sheet in order to understand where the company stands and what are the potentials and the possible bottlenecks and possible points of improvement. So thank you very much for having me here. If you're interested in this topic, I have also written a small article about it. It basically covers what I said, so it can be also found here. And now I'm happy to hand over the word, or I don't know, questions are going to be after our joint session, right?
Yes.
Good, then thank you very much for your attention. I'm here and looking forward to questions.